Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome to the show. Hope you guys have saved some room in that gas tank because it's time to go one more round with Rob. Here on today's show, I'm going to be giving you guys my take on a couple of fights from the Bellator 258 card that happened this past Friday, which was headlined by Juan Archuleta defending the Bellator Bantamweight World Championship against Sergio Pettis. Good card overall, guys. There were a couple of fights in there that were a little bit long and kind of went to decision. A few more decisions than there were finishes on this card. But I think the fights that I got for you guys, man, I thought they were exciting fights. I thought they were good technical fights, and I really enjoyed them. So let's get into it. First fight I got for you guys is actually from the first fight of the night. It was Eric Perez taking on Blaine Shutt in a bantamweight bout. So round one, these two come out, and they start really light on their feet, which is, for a bantamweight bout is almost to be expected. They both come out, they're light on their feet, in the middle of the cage, moving around. I believe it was Shutt taking more of the middle of the cage, Perez more on the outside and the perimeter of the cage. Either way, they're both moving around really well to start. Not really throwing a whole lot, but just trying to get their timing and range and really trying to see if the other one's going to be overly aggressive or not. About 45 seconds in, though, Shutt shoots for a single leg takedown on Perez, but Perez sprawls and just starts unloading elbows to the side of Shutt's head. Like he's just it's one of those things where if the guy doesn't get the single leg, he's most likely going to start catching elbows to the side of the head, and well, that's what Perez decided to do after he sprawled, got the defense that he wanted to get. He just started throwing elbows to Shutt's head. It's a great game plan. Shutt eventually does get a takedown, does get the takedown on Perez, but Perez reverses it pretty quickly, gets on top. Then he just starts landing some ground and pound, both to the body and the head. He's mixing it up well so that he can keep landing. Shutt at one point tries to use the cage to push off to reverse and get up. But Perez does a really good job in this first round of just kind of floating on top of Shutt, so to speak, to keep himself on top. He doesn't really allow himself to be too heavy in one spot for Shutt to have an easier advantage or an easier time getting him off the top. So he does really well floating to stay on top. And he ends up ending the round throwing hard elbows to Shutt there. So it was really a round of Perez kind of controlling the top, floating with Shutt's movements, landing his ground and pound. Shutt does throw up a couple of submission attempts throughout the round, but Perez just obviously makes it through the round, so he just ends up being very effective defending him and being able to stay on top, because a lot of times what guys will do is they'll use the submission attempt, and then when the other guy is defending it, they'll kind of use that submission attempt as a sweep to get either onto the top again or get up to their feet altogether. And Perez just didn't let that happen. He defended the submissions. He stayed on top. Like I said, he did really well floating with it. I gave the round 10-9 to Perez. Round two, the two guys come out, and Perez ends up catching Shutt pretty early with a couple of clipping shots. And one of them drops Shutt. So Perez is able to kind of get on top, land a little ground and pound again. But then he lets Shutt up, which I think was a smart choice to let Shutt up at that point. He had already clipped him in really early in the round, very early in the round. So it was like, okay, let him up and catch him again. One of those things. Shutt shoots for another takedown. Perez stuffs this one as well. Gets top control again off of this. And again, while Perez is on top, he's landing hard elbows, hard punches, and it's just it seems like it's going the same way that round one went. I don't know what else to say at that point, guys. Like, but Perez he's stuffing the takedowns. He's getting the top control. He's landing his ground and pound. Shutt I don't know that he was. I almost want to say he was overwhelmed. Perez did have a pretty hefty experience advantage on him, so I think Shutt just kind of got overwhelmed. Perez was like, I've been here before. I'm going to put you in these positions, see what you do. And Shutt got put in those positions and just didn't know what to do. So, I mean, it was what it was. Shutt does get Perez's back with about 45 seconds left in the round. So he is able to get a little bit of a reversal there. But he's only able to hold it for about 30 seconds or so, because then Perez reverses and he gets, top control back with about 15 seconds left in the round there. And that's pretty much where the round ends, So, again, it was a takedown attempt by Shutt. They got stuffed by Perez that then Perez used a very good chunk of the round to just control Shutt and land the ground and pound when he wanted. Shutt does get that one reversal, but Perez gets it right back. Another 10-9 round for Perez, in my opinion. Round 3, the two come out. They actually trade head kick attempts really early. They come out and immediately both trade head kick attempts. I think it was Shutt that threw the first one, and Perez kind of answered back, but either way, or it could have been the other way, but it doesn't really matter. They come out. It was not something that I expected either man to do. I didn't expect Perez to take that risk, because that's throwing a high kick. I think it would have been a little bit more advantageous for Shutt to kind of dive under and go for the base leg, because you only have one base leg at that point. So if you can take that leg out, boom, you got the ground control, and it looked like that's where Shutt wanted to be anyway. So, and I wasn't expecting it coming from Shutt either, because, like I said, he seemed to be wanting to go to the ground, and throwing a high kick is not the best way to transition to a takedown. Not saying that it can't be done, but it's not the best technique to then use as a transition. We keep going in the round, though. Perez digs really good to Shutt's body with a right hook. But as he's like digging in, Shutt ends up going for a guillotine choke. Perez escapes, lands some more ground and pound, because at that point Shutt had kind of jumped guard, so Perez escapes, lands some more ground and pound. Shutt ends up turning, giving up his back, but he can get to his feet before Perez can get his hooks in. So for some of you that might understand what I mean by hooks in, I'm not talking about hook like punches. I'm not talking like that kind of thing. In this case, what I mean by hooks is when somebody has back control on somebody, what you'll see is the guy that's controlling the person's back, they'll kind of almost sit hip to hip with them. So they'll sit the front of their hip to their back of the hip. And then what they'll do is they'll take both of their legs and they'll hook them inside of the thighs of the person that's on the bottom, so that they can kind of hold that position a little bit better. They kind of are able to control the person on the bottom a little better. Perez isn't able to get those hooks in, though. So Shutt is able to kind of get back to his feet, get a little bit of separation. Perez does end up with some more control up against the cage, though, and landing some good strikes there. And then the two separate again. They got about a minute left in the round. Shutt shoots for another single leg takedown. Perez again stuffs it. He lands more elbows to the side of Shutt's head. The two scramble back to their feet. They maybe exchange one or two more times. Nothing really too major there. Nobody really lands too hard. So round ends. I gave it another 10-9 round to Perez. I thought he controlled the first two rounds pretty clearly by stuffing the takedowns, getting the top control, landing the ground and pound. I thought he did enough in this third round with the couple of times that he had some ground control as well. I just thought it was a really good night for Perez. We go to the judges' scorecards. All three judges scored it in favor, so a unanimous decision win for Eric Perez. He had a score of 30-27 on two of the judges' scorecards, and then 30-26 on the last judge's scorecard. I'm assuming he gave one of those rounds to Perez as a 10-8. I didn't really see enough in any of the rounds to think that Perez should have gotten a 10-8. I'm not against it, especially if you want to talk like the first round. I think that one might have been the best round that you could, argue that Perez should get a 10-8 round. To me, it just didn't seem like he had done enough in that round to get a 10-8. Either way, they got the decision right. It most clearly should have gone to Eric Perez, and it did. So it was a great win for Perez. He controlled almost every minute of the fight, and I think it ultimately, Shutt just has some work to do. He's got to get, when he gets back in the gym, he's got to kind of go back to the drawing board a little bit. And I think he's got to figure out how to deal with guys that are going to have the amount of experience that Perez has when he takes them on. I mean, because I think that ultimately is what ended up being too much for Shutt. Is he was trying to put Perez in situations, but Perez was like, hey man, I've been here before, been around the block. This is nothing new to me. And he was able to defend him and just put Shutt in the positions that Shutt didn't want to be in. So great fight from these two guys. Looking forward to seeing Perez back out there again. Hopefully with a little bit more tougher competition next time out. Shutt, I hope he makes those adjustments. I hope he makes the adjustments he has to need to get rolling here. Second fight I got for you guys. It was actually the co-main event. It's Anthony Rumble Johnson versus Jose Augusto. This was the final bout in the quarterfinal round for the Bellator Light Heavyweight World Grand Prix tournament. This bout was originally supposed to be Anthony Rumble Johnson versus Yoel Romero, but Romero was not medically cleared, so Augusto stepped in. And I want to say Romero wasn't cleared middle of the week before the fight, so not fight week, but the week before fight week. I want to say it was probably about the middle of that week. Romero was ended up being not medically cleared to take part. I could be wrong in the timing of that, but that's just what feels right to me. It may have. Either way, it wasn't too long before the fight that Romero was no longer medically cleared for the fight, and Augusto stepped in. So Augusto's taking it on short notice. Great opportunity for him coming into the Grand Prix tournament, coming in against a guy like Rumble Johnson. This was lined up for Augusto to kind of shock the world. So let's get into it. Round one, Rumble comes out, takes the middle of the cage. He actually throws a calf kick to start. I was really impressed with Rumble Johnson coming out and throwing a calf kick to start. He trains with those guys that love to throw those calf kicks. So ultimately not overly surprised. But really, really glad I saw Rumble start throwing that early. Augusto just looked like he wanted to counter early. It looked like he was looking for those counter strikes for when Rumble would pause after he throws, like everyone does. You have a natural pause after you throw. So it looked like he was trying to be like more of a counter striker early. And he starts attacking to the body towards the middle of the round of Rumble, which is really smart. So, because guys, over Rumble's career, he has fought in 4 different weight classes. He has fought down at welterweight, which is 170 pounds, which, guys, so this fight was light heavyweight, so it's 205 pounds. Rumble Johnson used to fight 35 pounds less than that weight limit. Ended up having trouble making that weight as he got older, which doesn't surprise me. Fought at 185 pounds a couple of times. Again, started having trouble making that weight. Then moved up to 205 pounds, which is where he's at now, which I think is a great home for him. And he's even fought at heavyweight a couple of times, which I think that was. I don't think that he should fight at heavyweight. I think 205 is right for him. So attacking Rumble's body is probably not the worst idea. I think with all those fluctuations of weight classes, not that it's an issue now, but it definitely says, hey, he could have an issue. He could have an issue with his cardio. That's why making the weight may have been so difficult as well. Let's start digging at his body. Could be a thing. I don't know. I don't know Rumble Johnson personally, but I thought it was a smart idea. I think it's a smart idea anyway, even with somebody that doesn't fluctuate through weight classes. So starts going to the body about middle of the round on Rumble Johnson, which is great. Great idea. With about 3 minutes left in the round, though, Augusto appears to hurt his right hand after he landed a good punch to Rumble's head. So they're in an exchange. I believe it was a straight punch too. Augusto just throws a straight right, kind of clips Rumble in this area. So not really the hardest part of the head, but it was kind of a skip shot. So instead of it coming straight in, he kind of came kind of clipping wise, which those are the shots that are going to break your hand. They really are. The bones in the hand are not structured to take deflective forces that kind of way. If you hit it straight on, it can, have the muscles of the hand, muscles of the wrist, muscles of the forearm all kind of help absorb the shock, excuse me. But when you get that skipping motion, it kind of sends a diagonal plane of force through your hand, and the bones just aren't strong enough to handle that. They're small bones in anybody's hand comparatively to the rest of their body. So he lands kind of that skipping shot, and you can see he immediately goes back and starts grabbing his glove on that hand, starts kind of shaking it out. Rumble sees this, and he just goes at him, just moves in, starts pressuring him. He lands a hard, Rumble lands a hard right uppercut. Augusto kind of moves himself across the cage. Rumble literally just kind of marches across the cage, chasing him down. He lands a few more right uppercuts that are strong, couple of other punches. Augusto then, as he's circling out, as he's pivoting out, catches Rumble and tags him with a left hook, then lands a good 4-6-1 combo. So that's the rear hook, rear uppercut, jab. Really good combo, which he was throwing the right hand. I mean, it's one of those things where if you still want to be competitive in the fight, you got to throw it. Like, it's already broken. You're probably not going to do anything worse to it. Might as well throw it and try to win the fight too, because at least then you get some extra money to get your hand fixed too. Now, I'm sure Bellator is going to pick up the tab on if Augusto needs surgery, but a little bit of extra money to help with some of that rehab is not a bad idea too. Augusto, so off of that 4-6-1 combo, drops Rumble, lands some good left hands on the ground. Rumble trying to wrestle to avoid getting hit more, excuse me. But Augusto, he starts landing those elbows. Same thing, the elbows going straight to the side of Rumble's head here. Rumble does get a takedown with 30 seconds left. He lands a little bit of ground and pound with 10 seconds left, but it was really just kind of Rumble holding Augusto down so that he couldn't get hit anymore. He just didn't want to get hit anymore in the round, and that, it was a smart game plan. He was like, I'm going to take you down, I'm going to hold you, I'll land a little bit here at the end. I'm just not going to let you hit me anymore, though. I did give the round 10-9 to Augusto, though. So, I mean, it was hard for me to not. Rumble got the takedown there and landed some ground and pound right at the end. But Augusto dropped him. He clipped him. Like Rumble was in trouble. Like, Rumble was hurt, and he had to battle back. And I think That was clear. I think that should have been clearly enough for anybody to give Augusto the round. So we come out round 2. Let's, everyone, I'm sure at this point is like, let's see how Rumble answers. Like, yeah, he ended the last round well, so to speak. But, it's still pretty soon after he had taken all of those shots. So let's see how he does. Rumble comes out. He opens up with another calf kick attempt. And Augusto seems to be more confident to start the round as well. Augusto's throwing more than he did in the opening minute of the first round. He's throwing more in the second round in that opening minute than he did in the first round. And then, through the first minute and 15 seconds, both guys are really just kind of exchanging some short combos. Nothing really thrown with anything noticeable, with any noticeable power or anything like that. But then just before the minute and a half mark, Rumble lands a hard 1-2 combo that just puts Augusto to sleep. It was really beautiful. Just kind of, he saw the opening, threw the 1-2. The jab was a little bit more towards the body to kind of to draw Augusto's hands down, and then that right hand just came right over the top, clipped Augusto, put him out. Rumble does land one hammer fist on the ground before the ref can stop the bout. But other than that, there was no extra damage put onto Augusto once he had been knocked down by Rumble. Just the one hammer fist. Everything else was, the ref got there fast enough that nothing else happened. So everything else just didn't occur. So it was a knockout win, KO win at a minute and 30 seconds of round 2 for Anthony Rumble Johnson. Great bout by both men. Really great bout. Augusto came in on short notice, hurt his hand in the first round on Rumble's head, still dropped Rumble, and put up a good overall fight. And he even gained a little confidence after he dropped Rumble there. And you could tell that in round 2 with as much as he was in it. He was saying, hey, I can go first and I can, work my combos on you. So I thought he had a good fight overall. I think a training camp would have benefited him, though. And a training camp specifically targeted towards Rumble. Rumble had a great fight, too, though. He had overcome some adversity early with thinking, Augusto's hand was too hurt. And then he got dropped by Augusto shortly after that. Came back in the second round, though, and left no doubt. He came out and he was like, yeah, no, I was supposed to be fighting another guy who's recognized as one of the top guys in the world. I'm not going to let this kid make me look like I'm going to be, I'm becoming an easy matchup. He was like, I'm not going to let this kid try to make people think that. Put him out, left no doubt. Guys, let me tell you what, this light heavyweight tournament is shaping up to be really exciting. I cannot wait for the semifinals. It's exciting, guys. It's a really great tournament. If you guys haven't started watching it, I recommend starting watching it immediately. It's one of the better tournaments I think that Bellator has put on. So now we get to our main event of the evening. Juan Archuleta defending the Bellator World Bantamweight Championship against Sergio Pettis. Really happy that Sergio got this fight. I think he's really found a home in this bantamweight division again. He fought a couple of times in the UFC at bantamweight, had some great fights at bantamweight, dropped down to 125 pounds, which is the flyweight division. I just think he was too big for that weight class. I think the weight cut was really draining him, so he didn't have as much success there. I'm guys, I don't know what to say other than I'm just really glad that Sergio got this opportunity. Juan won the belt back in September, I believe it was, and he had a great fight in that bout. So this was definitely going to be an exciting fight, no doubt. So let's get into it. Round 1, Archuleta comes out. He's light on his feet, moving around early, as is Sergio. So so Pettis, he's also light on his feet, which both of the Pettis brothers are. They have that Taekwondo background, so they almost are constantly light on their feet. They don't really have Pettis and Archuleta don't really exchange too much in the first minute, but at about that 1 minute mark, they start having some more exchanges. Pettis overcommits on a hook at one point, that leads to Archuleta kind of changing levels, getting him down, but Pettis goes right to a front headlock to control Archuleta. Doesn't really look like he's going to lock in a guillotine or go over full commit for the guillotine, but he does lock in that front headlock to try to control Archuleta, which was a smart idea. Archuleta, even with that, ends up holding Pettis up against the cage for a little bit until Pettis is able to kind of flip his hips and escape and get back to the center of the cage. And then the two start going through some more exchanges. So in one of their exchanges, Pettis lands a solid right hand as a counterpunch, and then he lands another good right hand about 15 seconds later, again as a counterpunch. And Pettis at this point really seemed to be getting that right hand going early. It seemed like he had found the range for it. He landed it 2 really good times, really good, really solid times. He was landing it before, and he was landing it for the rest of the round as well. So that right hand just if he found the range for it early, and that is really good for Pettis. Really good for Pettis, especially if this fight keeps going into the 4th and 5th rounds, into those championship rounds. It's really good to know that you have that in your back pocket where you're like, all right, well, I already got the range for this, and I can just tag you with it whenever I want. Archuleta does go to attacking the body late in the first round, and he scores a double leg takedown just before the end of the round. But I don't think that late attack to the body and the late double leg takedown was enough to score the round for Archuleta. I gave the round 10-9 to Pettis. I thought he landed better throughout the round. He defended that early takedown from Archuleta. Yes, Archuleta got that late takedown and was attacking the body late in the round. But I don't think that ended up being as effective overall as the striking of Pettis did throughout the round. Or Pettis was throughout the striking from Pettis was throughout the round. Excuse me, guys. Sorry. So we come out for round 2. Archuleta. Goodness golly, I don't know why that got me tongue tied. So Archuleta comes out, opens up with a quick 3-punch combo. Not too much damage done. I think it was just kind of something to get it in the face of Pettis. Archuleta to start this round appears to be wanting to use more angles. I think he was like, hey, I don't want to stand in front of this guy so much, especially with that right hand that was landing so well for Pettis in the first round, which I think is smart. So Archuleta is using those angles at the beginning of the round, and especially when he wants to throw, he'll move in on an angle or he'll move out on an angle, which is just good sound, striking overall anyway, but now he's really starting to get into it. Archuleta does get a good ankle pick takedown just before the 1.5-minute mark. But again, it was like Pettis was up immediately. It was almost like he was up immediately. Archuleta gets the ankle pick. He kind of gets a little bit of top control, but Pettis just scoots himself all the way back to the cage. Wall walks himself up on the cage, separates, and they're back to, standing at a distance and getting ready to strike. Pettis this round again starts landing counter punches, and it's doing really well for him. Really well. He's landing counter strike after counter strike after counter strike, and he's cutting off Archuleta's movement. So and how he was doing it was great because he was just stepping he was stepping just outside of Archuleta's lead leg. So for some people that may not know, that's kind of the way that you want to cut a guy off. If I'm fighting an opponent and they're circling to my right, which would be their left, what I want to do is I want to step just outside of that lead. I want to keep that lead leg inside. Okay, so I don't want them to get outside of my stance, because that's when they're able to better land their strike. So I want to keep them off of their off balance there. And it's a little bit easier if they are fighting opposite stances. So if I'm fighting right with my right hand in the back and they're fighting with their left hand in the back, so I'm fighting orthodox, they're southpaw. If they're circling to their right, it's easier for me because I can take that left leg and just keep going, my left leg that is, and just keep stepping just outside of their right leg. And it's a little bit easier, which I believe that was how they were lined up. I believe it was Archuleta that was southpaw, and Pettis was fighting more orthodox, I believe. So Pettis is cutting off Archuleta's movement there. Archuleta goes back to attacking the body of Pettis late in the round, which I think may have been his strategy, is like, hey, we'll get through most of the round, and then guess what? I'm going to start attacking your body late in the round and kind of trying to suck at that gas tank while you're already a little bit tired from the round. But even with Archuleta attacking the body late in the round, Pettis seemed to just be getting more and more effective with his counter strikes. And we're only through 2 rounds at this point, and it just seemed like, oh, this is the game plan that Pettis is going to be able to use to beat Archuleta. Like this, Juan's got to make he's got to make an adjustment. He's got to make an adjustment in the middle of these, at some point in the middle of a round or in between rounds, if he's going to overcome that strategy from Pettis. So the round ends. I gave the round to Pettis again, 10-9. His counter striking was just phenomenal. Round 3, Archuleta comes out. He's trying to use some movement to mask, when he's going to throw. But Pettis is able to avoid a lot of it anyway. And this is kind of how this round goes. As Archuleta is trying to use movement, Pettis is like, hey, I can see your stuff coming a mile away anyway. Archuleta tries to stick and move to avoid Pettis' countering, but Pettis is still able to land counter punches effectively. Pettis' counter punching game on Friday night was just on another level, and nobody was really going to stop Pettis from landing that. I don't think it would have mattered who was in the cage with Pettis that night. His counter punches were just on. And it was on point. He had his timing. He had his range. And it was like, he's going to land. Archuleta gains some clinch control up against the cage, but he's not able to get a takedown from it. Pettis separates again. Archuleta starts attacking the body late in the round. I actually gave this round to Archuleta, 10-9. I thought he had the more effective striking throughout the round, and I thought it may have been his best round. So Pettis was able to counter punch, like I said, and he had his range and his timing and everything. But Archuleta also in this round was landing some good shots. He it was a back and forth. I definitely wouldn't have been upset if somebody scored it for Pettis. I definitely wouldn't have been against that. I just thought Archuleta did just enough in this round, though, especially with having the clinch control up against the cage. No, he wasn't able to get the takedown, but he had clinch control, so that's effective grappling there. He, especially early in the round 2, when he started using that movement and angles and kind of using his movement to mask when he was going to throw, he landed pretty effectively on Pettis, and then Pettis figured out what was going on and adjusted himself to it. But like I said, I think early in that round and the clinch control there was just enough for Archuleta to get the nod from me for the round. Round 4, Archuleta comes out fast, putting pressure on Pettis. Gets a little bit of like a clinch situation that they ended up in at a very, very early point in the round. But Pettis is able to get separation and land a good shot off of it as well. Guys, I think at this point Archuleta had a feeling he was down on the cards, and I think he wanted to put Pettis away so that he didn't have to worry about the scorecards, because he didn't really start this way in any of the other 3 rounds. So it was, unless this was the game plan, was hey, if we get through the first 3 rounds, the 4th round we're coming out fast and furious. That could have been the game plan, but normally you would see a hint of it at some point to start one of the earlier rounds, and you just didn't. So he's either really good at following the game plan, or his corner was like, hey man, you got to start putting it on him, because he might be ahead 3 rounds to none on the scorecards, which was very likely. Or it was likely. I don't want to say very likely, like it was clearly Pettis 100% controlling each round. Like I said, that 3rd round was really close. But so that's how Archuleta starts the 4th round. Like I said, Pettis, off of that separation from that brief clinch, lands a good shot. Archuleta gets a leg trip. Pettis back up immediately, though. I think that was one of the big things that was affecting Archuleta's effectiveness on Friday night, was he wasn't able to get a takedown and hold Pettis down, which that's kind of a good way to control the Pettis brothers. Is they're strikers. They know how to grapple, they know how to wrestle and do jiu-jitsu and all that kind of stuff. But they're strikers. They want to strike. That's what their base is in. That's what they want to do. And to not be able to hold Sergio Pettis down at all, essentially, so far in this fight, I think really started to hurt Archuleta's game. Pettis lands a hard counter right about a minute and a half into the round. Seems comfortable going first at times now, too. So normally in the first 3 rounds, you saw Pettis just kind of sitting back and then counter punching. Now Pettis is going first at times. I think it's starting to affect Archuleta as well, because at this point he's not really using the angles that he used in round 3. He's not using that as many angles in this round as he did in round 3. He's going back to more of a straight in and out movement, which is only going to help and be good for Pettis, who's able to land those counter punches. Archuleta is throwing a little more as he's moving in and out, but it's a little more wild in this round. Like I said in the beginning, I think his corner was like, hey man, we're probably going to need a finish in these last 2 rounds, so we got to make something happen. And I think that's just what Archuleta was trying to do. He was just trying to get a home run hit and, clock out for the night. But because he's throwing wildly, Pettis is able to counter very easily. And it was just due to the wild punches and the more linear movement from Archuleta. So the round ends. I gave it 10-9 to Pettis. His counters got back to being more effective. He didn't allow Archuleta to really have any grappling or clinch control on him. And I thought it was a clear round for Pettis again. Round 5, both guys come out. They're both showing some redness and swelling on their face, especially around the eye area here and underneath, everything like that. Red, some swelling. Makes sense. They've just gone through 20 minutes of a fight. Archuleta used the takedown attempt to drive Pettis back into the cage briefly, because then Pettis gets his underhooks. He gets separated quickly. Kind of the same thing that's been happening the whole fight whenever Archuleta has tried to engage in a grappling exchange. Pettis is just like, nope, I'm going to separate, and we're going to be at a distance. We're going to strike, and we're going to figure out, who's the better man at this game. Archuleta seems to be trying to find something that'll work for him in this round. Like it looked like he was just searching for something. I don't know, guys. I'm trying to think of something, but I really can't. He was just trying to find something that would work for him. Pettis' counters are still super effective, even in this round. Archuleta does get a big slam with about 2 minutes left. Like the sequence was really interesting. He went in and he almost kind of grabbed at Pettis' legs and then lifted up and like turned him and slammed him, not straight down, but he slammed him on his back with Pettis' head towards Archuleta at this point. So Archuleta gets on top there. He gets some top control time. But Pettis is really, it almost looks like he's trying to use an inverted triangle at that point to kind of control Archuleta and not let Archuleta do what he wants on the ground, which most certainly was probably going to include some kind of ground and pound to try to get Pettis out of there. So he's like I said, he's using that inverted triangle. He's controlling Archuleta with it. Archuleta does get some back control with about 30 seconds left, but Pettis is able to turn into him and keep Archuleta from landing really anything on the ground. Really any submission attempts, any strikes, really just about anything on the ground. Archuleta really wasn't able to throw. Like I think he threw a couple of shots while Pettis had him in the inverted triangle. But if he did, they weren't really effective and not memorable kind of strikes. So the round ends. I gave the round 10-9 to Pettis, so I had it scored 4-1 for Sergio Pettis. I was fully expecting him to become the new Bellator Bantamweight World Champion. But of course, like I always tell you guys, my scoring doesn't really matter. It all matters about what the three judges saw that were cage side that night. So we'll go to the judges' scorecards. The judges' scorecards read 50-45, 49-46, and 49-46. Unanimous decision win for the winner and new Bellator Bantamweight World Champion, Sergio Pettis. I don't know how they could have messed this one up, guys. Like Sergio was just like I said, his counter punches were on that night. And that's what I think really got him the fight. It was a good fight from both guys. Like I said, Pettis' counters, they just seemed to be too much for Archuleta to adjust to. And I don't know why Archuleta wasn't able to adjust to them. But he wasn't. He just wasn't able to adjust to them. I'm not sure why, but he just didn't. It just seemed that whenever Archuleta tried to adjust to it, Pettis just readjusted how he would counter. And so I guess maybe it was that Archuleta was trying to do an adjustment, but Pettis was adjusting at the same time, and Pettis' adjustments just might have been just enough to keep Archuleta's adjustments from being effective. I think both guys had good game plans. Pettis just was able to execute his more effectively. Archuleta wasn't able to hold Pettis down, and Pettis was able to land the counter punches when he had to. So, like I said, both guys had good game plans as far as I'm concerned. Pettis was just able to execute more effectively. One thing I can say for certain is this fight was really enjoyable for me to watch. And I would not be opposed to seeing these two back in the cage together in the future. I don't know if an immediate run back is warranted, or is proper in this case. But I could see. I definitely don't think Juan Archuleta is too far out of another title shot. In the near future. So there you have it, guys. Those are the fights. That's my take on the fights from Bellator 258. let me know in the comments section down below what you guys thought. If you guys agree with my take, we can have a discussion about it. If you didn't agree with my take, we can have a discussion about it. So please comment down below. Also, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, everything like that. Hop over to Instagram, follow me there at One More Round Rob. Follow me on Facebook, One More Round with Rob. Posting there daily, updates on the sports, fight cancellations, fight announcements, everything like that. So please hop over there and follow me there. If you have any cards that are coming up that you think have some big names or some exciting fights that could be happening on them, let me know. I'll take a look at the card, and maybe I'll give my take on a couple of those fights. Until next time, guys, congratulations. You just went one more round with Rob. Have a good one. Stay safe. We'll see you next time.